You won't believe what happened to me last week. Something straight out of a movie, but it was all real. It all started when Karen, my next-door neighbor, spotted some suspicious bags in my barn. She didn't waste a second and called the cops, convinced something shady was going down. I mean, who wouldn't be alarmed? Strange bags, just sitting there, no explanation. The tension between us was already thick, and this only made things worse. But here's the crazy part: the bags didn't belong to me or anyone I know. They were actually part of a SWAT operation happening right under my nose. And I had no idea. From the moment Karen dialed 911, the whole neighborhood buzzed with rumors and whispers. People started asking questions, and suddenly I was the center of an unexpected storm. What were those bags? Why were they in my barn? And most importantly, how did the SWAT team get involved without me even realizing it? I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. It felt like my peaceful life had been turned upside down overnight. In this story, you'll meet Karen Cheese, a person who's always been a little nosy, but genuinely cares about the community's safety. Then there's me, just an ordinary person caught in something way bigger than I ever imagined. And the real twist: the SWAT team's secret mission that no one was supposed to know about. What started as a simple misunderstanding quickly spiraled into something much more intense, and I was stuck right in the middle. So what's really going on behind those barn doors? Why did Karen feel so certain she had to call the cops? And how did the whole situation escalate so fast? Stick around, because the story only gets more surprising from here. You won't want to miss what happens next. After Karen made that call, everything moved faster than I expected. Within minutes, I could hear sirens blaring down the street. It was strange because I hadn't seen or heard anything unusual before. Warnings, no hints. The bags in the barn. Honestly, I didn't even know they were there until Karen pointed them out. I'd been busy with work and life, so the barn was mostly just a storage spot for old tools and some junk. But those bags, they looked serious heavy. Tactical, and definitely not something you'd find in a regular barn. Karen's instincts were sharp, I'll give her that. She's always been protective of the neighborhood, and maybe that's why she was so quick to call the police. But I couldn't help but wonder if this was all just a big misunderstanding, or maybe something more. What if those bags weren't just some random gear? What if they were part of a larger plan, and I had unknowingly become part of it? The thought gave me chills. When the police arrived, things got even more intense. Officers were cautious, moving carefully around the barn, radios buzzing with updates. Then, out of nowhere, a group of SWAT team members showed up, fully geared up and ready. That's when I realized this wasn't just some simple complaint was connected to something serious. The barn, my barn, had somehow become a focal point for a secret operation. But why? And how? I tried to questions, but the officers were tight-lipped, only saying it was an ongoing investigation. That phrase only made me more curious and nervous. What kind of investigation involves a SWAT team and mysterious bags hidden in a quiet neighborhood? Was I in danger? Was Karen right to call the cops, or had she just made things worse? The whole scene felt surreal. Neighbors gathered at a distance, whispering, watching the flashing lights. No one knew what to make of it, and honestly, neither did I. As the night grew darker, the mystery only deepened. What exactly was inside those bags? And what role was I supposed to play in all this? The answers were out there, but they weren't coming easy. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than just a simple SWAT operation. The whole situation had this weird energy, like something hidden beneath the surface, just out of sight. Karen kept popping into my mind, too. I mean, she had good intentions, but was she right about the bags, or was her suspicion just fueled by paranoia? It made me wonder how often we jump to conclusions when we see something unfamiliar. especially in a quiet place like this. Meanwhile, the neighbors' reactions added another layer to the mystery. Some were whispering about crime, others worried about safety, and a few were downright scared. I overheard someone say they thought the cops were there because of drugs, while another neighbor guessed it might be connected to some kind of threat. None of it felt right to me, though I've never been involved in anything shady, and honestly, my barn was about as boring as it gets. But then there was the SWAT team itself. Watching them work with such precision made me realize this wasn't random. Whatever was in those bags had to be important enough to bring out a full tactical team. I kept thinking about what kinds of situations require SWAT involvement: hostage situations, high-risk arrests, or major threats. How had I gotten mixed up in this? Did someone use my barn without my knowledge? Was I a target or just collateral? I tried reaching out to Karen, hoping to get her side of the story. She was nervous but stood firm. She said she just wanted everyone safe and felt she did the right thing by calling the police. Her fear was real, but so was my confusion and growing frustration. We were stuck in this strange place where neither of us fully understood what was happening. Then there was the question of the police themselves. They remained tight-lipped, almost like they were hiding something. I caught bits of conversations about sensitive information and ongoing threats, but no clear answers. The tension was thick, and the silence felt heavy. It was clear this story was far from over, and whatever was inside those bags could change everything. Days passed, but the mystery only deepened. The barn was still cordoned off, and the police presence hadn't lessened. Every time I walked by, I felt a mix of frustration and fear. What was really going on? I kept replaying Karen's call in my head. Was she right to be suspicious, or had she accidentally dragged me into something dangerous? The more I thought about it, the harder it became to separate fact from fear. At night, I'd lie awake, wondering if someone was watching me, or if those bags were just the tip of a bigger secret. The neighborhood felt different, and eyes seemed to follow me. Conversations dropped when I approached. It was like being trapped in a thriller, but this was my life. Karen's face kept coming up in my mind, too. I didn't want to blame her, but I couldn't ignore the tension her call had set off. Still, I had to know the truth. Then, one evening, everything escalated. The SWAT team returned, this time with even more gear and urgency. Neighbors gathered again, whispers turning into rumors of an imminent raid or a breakthrough in the investigation. I felt my heart pound as officers moved around the barn with purpose, their faces serious. Radios crackling with coded messages I couldn't understand. I tried to stay calm, but inside, panic was rising. What if this wasn't just about bags or suspicion anymore? What if my home was somehow connected to something illegal, something dangerous? I wanted to ask questions, but every time I tried, the officers brushed me off or gave vague answers. I was caught between wanting to cooperate and feeling helpless. Karen showed up again that night, eyes wide and voice trembling as she admitted she hadn't expected things to get this serious. We stood in uneasy silence, both waiting, both wondering. What would come next? The tension was unbearable. Something was about to happen, something that could change everything. And just when I thought I might finally get answers, the team moved in closer to the barn, preparing to open it up. The moment was thick with suspense. What lay inside? What would they find? The next few minutes would decide everything, just as the SWAT team started to pry open the barn doors. A loud shout from one of the officers stopped everything in its tracks. Everyone froze. Then, out of nowhere, a voice crackled over the radio, something about hold the breach and wait for backup. The tension skyrocketed in an instant. I stood there, heart racing, wondering what could be so urgent that even the heavily armed team had to pause. That's when things took a surprising turn. A man in plain clothes stepped forward, talking quietly but firmly to the team leader. From what I overheard, the situation was far more complicated than anyone had let on. Apparently, the bags weren't just random gear or evidence they contained. Highly sensitive equipment tied to an undercover operation that had been running for months. This wasn't just a neighborhood incident. It was part of a larger, secret mission that had somehow gone sideways. What shocked me most was when the man mentioned that the barn itself might have been compromised, not by me or Karen, but by someone else using my property without my knowledge. Someone involved in something dangerous, and now the whole area was at risk. My mind reeled. How could my quiet barn be connected to anything like this? Who would use it, and for what? Karen looked stunned, her earlier worries overshadowed by this new revelation. Suddenly, her call to the cops didn't seem so simple anymore. She had unknowingly set off a chain of events that exposed something far bigger, and potentially way more dangerous than anyone imagined. As the SWAT team readied themselves again, the tension was unbearable. The neighbors watched silently. The street eerily quiet except for the occasional crackle of radios. No one knew what the next move would bring, but it was clear this wasn't just about suspicious bags anymore. The stakes were higher, the danger more real, and I was caught right in the middle of a